Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by Mike MacAdam of the Daily Gazette. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Seth. How are you today? How's everybody doing?
Very good. We're happy to have you on board. We haven't talked to you here on the show since Saratoga when we're live from the backstretch. Of course, you're up at Saratoga in the press box most every day covering racing for the Daily Gazette. Plenty of other sports on your beat, though, the rest of the year. Horse racing among those sports. But what else have you been covering since Saratoga ended?
Oh, boy, I've been all over the map. A little high school football here and there. Siena basketball is getting ready to heat up. Really, I'm all over the map right now, but this week is Breeders' Cup week, so my head is kind of in that subject pretty much 24 hours a day. So after the Breeders' Cup, we'll start sniffing around for some other stories.
Yeah, that's why I reached out. I knew you'd have some ideas, and I said earlier when we talked to Mike Penna, it's Monday. We haven't had the post position selected yet, so we're not pinning anybody down specifically, just trying to get some ideas. But I'm assuming during the week there'll be some nice Breeders' Cup coverage in the Gazette from you.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to do a picks column on Tuesday for Wednesday. I'm probably focusing on the Classic for the most part, but I'll throw a couple other things in there too. And as you said, after the draw comes out, we'll have a way better idea of what's going on and what you want to kind of center on. But got some preliminary ideas too. So, the PPs came out last week, and I've had my nose in those a little bit, and so we'll certainly have some Breeders' Cup stuff in the paper this week for sure.
All right, let's get some of those preliminary ideas. Let's start with your thoughts in the Classic. And again, we're not pinning anybody down, just trying to get some early ideas. But but you can go to the Gazette on Wednesday, and Mike will have ideas pinned down. But again, I said earlier during the week as we talk about these various races, I'm just going to pull up some races that people might want to get a look at. So you might not be keyed in on this particular horse, but I did want to give folks a look at that Pennsylvania Derby in Bayern, who was just phenomenal down in Philadelphia on September 20th. Number 4, Bayern gets it done over number 7, Tapiture. Number 2, Candy Boy will run third. When we watch the stretch run of the Pennsylvania Derby, Bayern, to me, really, really intriguing. I talked about this race a little earlier with Mike Penn, and I said, you can name 7 horses probably who you think have a real shot, and then the ones you're leaving out wouldn't really be a shock. I think this race is very, very intriguing. What are your early thoughts on the Classic?
Absolutely. It's wide open. I was down there for the Pennsylvania Derby, so I got a chance to see Bayern firsthand. I'm throwing him out, though, because he just seems like a horse who has to have things his own way every time to win. He looks like $1 million when he does get that situation, but I don't think he will in this race. There's other speed in there, for one thing, and there's a bunch of horses that are going to be stalking right off of that speed. And with that in mind, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to go back to Toneless for the time being until we see the draw, of course, and the odds and everything. I picked him in the Travers, and I picked him in the Belmont when he beat California Chrome. I think it sets up for him. The other reason I'm picking him a little bit is because I think there's a sense of dread hanging over the Horse of the Year voting for the Eclipse Awards this year, and if Toneless wins, that's going to just throw things into further disarray. I don't think he wins it, but I think because the Horse of the Year is so wide open, the Classic is not going to do us any favors, so a horse like Toneless could jump up there and win it and just drive everybody crazy.
I was at the museum on Saturday, and I had Toneless on top, too. And again, I said there I may tweak things given the post positions, but Toneless looks really intriguing to me as well. The horse that I put down in third in my mix, I had Cigar Street right underneath. I put Shared Belief in the third spot. Just, off the record, you can't leave him out off that nice win in the Awesome Again over the racetrack. But again, that was a win that just maybe wasn't as impressive as his other wins. I kind of am attributing that to the trouble he had, and so I maybe boost him up on the win. But some other folks are maybe taking the tack that, maybe he wasn't as good over the Santa Anita dirt track as he has been over other surfaces. How does Shared Belief fit into your mix?
I'm going to try to beat him. I like the fact that he's beaten older horses, but I don't like the fact that he's kind of lightly raced for a horse. He's only run 7 times in his career for whatever reason, and he's never been out of California. So, I'm going to try to beat him for sure. And there's plenty of other options in here. You mentioned Cigar Street. My note that I wrote down next to him is Scary Speed. So if we get a nice price on him, I'm going to throw him into the mix somehow also. But Tonalist on top. And I'm going to try to beat Shared Belief for sure.
And then California Chrome, the buzz coming out of California the weekend was pretty good on the workouts. I don't have California Chrome in my mix, but again, I left the option open to tweak things, and given the buzz this weekend, I may throw that one into the mix. But I just, off of the last couple of starts, I couldn't quite pull the trigger, particularly that Pennsylvania Derby. And as you say, you were down there. That had to be a real disappointment for these connect. You know, I'm sure they felt like, off the layoff, maybe he won't be as best, but I'm also sure they weren't expecting that sixth place finish down there at Parks.
Yeah, it wasn't even the layoff so much as the fact that and Art Sherman was very, adamant in making this point afterwards. The other riders were trying to beat Chrome in that race, and you can go back to the one before that, and you can say the same thing. I mean, he had a big target on his back, and they boxed him in, and Victor didn't do a very good job of getting him away from the mess at the beginning of the race. So, I think they're not looking at the layoffs as much as they are the fact that the other riders were trying, kind of focusing on him and trying to beat him, and they sure did. So, with that in mind, and the phenomenal work that everybody's talking about, you got to use them somehow. And if he beats you, you just tip your hat and say, yeah, here's probably our easy course of the year pick. But I'm going to use them somehow, and I'm willing to believe that rider tactics had a lot to do with his last two losses.
And that's an interesting point, because if that did play, and I don't disagree at all, if having the target on the back did play into the defeat in the past two races, there's not going to be a target on Saturday, because there are other horses who are far more intriguing that the target should be on.
Including a horse like Marino. I mean, everybody's going to be looking at him and see what he does. I mean, he could sit right off of Bayern and pick off some very even fractions and win the thing. But I think people are going to keep him in their sights a little bit. They don't want him to get away. And I think Tonalist again sits a good trip and is just off of those, and maybe the speed. Throw Cigar Street in there to kind of beat up each other a little bit, and it sets up for Tonalist. So the time being, that's kind of what I've settled on.
Well, I will say one thing: if Marino wins, your brethren in the print media will be very happy.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Plenty of good quotes from Eric Guillot, no question.
Yeah, and he's already got like this full panoply of voodoo stuff up on his barn. I saw a couple of photos that Barbara Livingston took this weekend. He's got like what's the cowboy from Toy Story? That guy. He's supposed to be Bill Murray.
Woody.
Yeah, Woody. And he's got SpongeBob as somebody and a bunch of other. He went to Toys R Us and just unloaded his wallet, and he's got all this stuff pinned up on the wall of his barn right now. So that's our guy Eric Guillot being Eric Guillot.
He is a piece of work, no question about it. All right, let's get some thoughts on the highlight on the prior day's card, the distaff. Again, talked a little bit about this earlier and said the same thing. You can make cases for a bunch of them in here. Belle Galante comes out of the nice win. Close Hatch is so talented. You got to think out of the Bill Mott barn she's going to rebound. Don't Tell Sophia comes in with the win streak. Ayatapa off of that Vanity a couple of months ago that I showed earlier. If she can bounce up to a race like that, very intriguing and untappable. Really a absolute quality 3-year-old filly, but steps up against older for the first time. What are your thoughts on the distaff?
I was really looking at Ayotapa earlier, and then maybe a half an hour ago, I saw somebody mention on Twitter that she had bled through the Lasix her last start, and she's back on the work tab, but apparently she was on the vets list for a little while. So based on that, maybe I'm going to be a little leery. And the horse, the filly that I went back to is Close Hatches. I think if you remember last year, everybody was complaining about how speed favoring the track was on Friday, and then they kind of fixed it on Saturday. But if they kind of follow that same pattern this year, maybe a fast track is just what Close Hatches is looking for. Untappable, as great as her record is and everything, I didn't think she won the Cotillion as impressively as she needed to or they wanted her to. So based on that, maybe I'm going to toss her a little bit. And but again, I think if you're willing to throw out Close Hatch's spinster last time, I think she could be sitting on a big one.
Yeah, and that's going to be the question for bettors. What do you do with that last race? Is she going in the wrong direction, or is that an aberration? I think most people are going to look at that. Again, being Bill Mott, you're going to look at that as an aberration. Otherwise, he wouldn't show up again. So it's going to be that's going to be just another intriguing race on the 2 days. And one more to hit on in here, Breeders' Cup Mile. Obviously, when Wisedan stepped aside, you lose Wisedan, you lose Beholder. We lost two marquee stories from the weekend, but it made these races maybe a little more intriguing, betting-wise, certainly. And I think that's true with the Breeders' Cup Mile. I think Toronado is going to take a lot of action. I said earlier, I think obviously is very, very intriguing in here. Seek again, I think that race last time at Keeneland, it looks worse than it was. The horse about the 8th pole had an opening and just wouldn't go through the opening. But I think this horse is better than that 6th place finish. I think the Fiesolana, the European, is intriguing as well. What are your thoughts on the mile?
I'm interested in Seek again as well, and I hate to sound like a broken record from what you guys were saying earlier, but I really jumped all over obviously in this one. For one thing, the two speed horses, or what appears to be the speed horses, Day at the Spa and Sayad, I think they prefer softer turf, and they ain't going to get that in California, I'm pretty sure. Which means that obviously another speed horse has a lot of potential to maybe get on the front and just run and hide and run away with it. So I liked Grand Arch a little bit too. He ran pretty well last time. He only got beat by a length by Wisedan in the Shadwell Turf Mile. So maybe I'll use him a little bit, but obviously it was the one that I kind of was screaming off the page at me just based on how I think the race is going to shape up and the condition of the turf.
Very good. All right. And Mike, before we let you go, just wanted to ask you, I know your buddies, I had them on the show before the races. Did you head up for the Canadian International?
I did not, unfortunately, and it's too bad because I would have loved to have gotten up there. I've been up there a few times. I made my Woodbine trip this year for the Queen's Plate, but I can't even remember what was going on, but there were some things. I was kind of busy and tied up. I was going to try to take vacation, but I didn't make it up there. But next year I'll definitely have it on my radar because that's kind of a time of year where there isn't a lot of stuff going on schedule-wise. It's kind of when the in-between zone between Saratoga and college basketball. So hopefully next year I'll sneak up there. It's always a good time. It's a wonderful day of racing. I would recommend it to anybody. Woodbine's beautiful. The turf course is amazing, and they get people from all over the planet for those races. It really is terrific.
And I've heard the same thing, and I got to get up there. And as I say, I had Keith MacAdam on the morning of the International, and he was saying Brown Panther looked great. Well, subsequently freaks out in the post parade. They scratch him, but he's showing up in the Breeders' Cup. Now you have to wonder, does he hold that form? And have they figured out why he freaked out?
Yeah, I know. That's going to be who knows? Maybe you get a good price on him because of that, and you got to take a hard look at him. I mean, he really looked like the one for the International, and he's fit. They said we're going to leave him here, and hopefully he doesn't flip out like that. I don't know his history of whether that was unusual or an aberration, or if he's kind of flighty like that anyway. For the most part, but you're going to have to take a hard look at him, and fortunately, perhaps get a decent price on him too at the same time.
Yeah, because the word was, as I said, Keith said he looked great, and I was on the panel on Saturday with Mike Veach, and Mike Veach said his connections up at Woodbine were saying the same thing. Brown Panther was coming into the race great. So, as you say, maybe things will work out. We'll get a little bit of a price on Breeders' Cup. I'll ask you one more. Our other buddy, Gene Kirshner, out in Buffalo, he's right across from Fort Erie. Have you ever been there? That's another track over in Canada I want to visit.
No, I actually had kind of an opportunity to go there a couple years ago. My sister lives in Buffalo, and she took her family up to whatever the beach resort is there up on Lake Erie, and I actually drove past Fort Erie, and I was like, the magnetic pole was dragging. I don't even know if they were racing that day, but I definitely have been in the vicinity, and we'll try to get there at some point. I'm in Western New York a lot, and it's kind of the same thing. We were driving to a Cleveland Indians game a few years ago and went right past Presque Isle Downs, And the other guys in the car, I said, "Hey, come on, we got to pull over." And they're not racing people. So they said, "Forget it. We're going to the baseball game," and just shut up and sit there.
That's hilarious that you say that, the magnetic pull, because I know the feeling exactly. As a racing fan, you're driving down the highway and you can see the lights in the stand.
Yeah.
You don't even really know, but there's a racetrack, and your hands on the steering wheel just kind of automatically pull you in that direction. You don't know that they're racing or not, but you're going.
You're in your lane.
Exactly. Very good. Mike, appreciate the visit this morning. I'll remind people, a Breeders' Cup selections column coming up Wednesday in the Daily Gazette. Again, Mike, thanks for the visit. We'll talk to you again.